Hello and welcome to another edition of Sierra Leone Media Live on YouTube and Facebook, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of not how they go inside the Republic, but how they go inside the Republic. Today we're going to be talking about so many things that has happening or that has been happening within the Republic, and today is a very special day. We're going to be a little bit religious today, as we have a religious program, not specifically religion per se, but something we get a lot for do with the religious aspects of Sierra Leone, which is one of the most tolerant society in the world that accept both religion to participate, both religion alongside each other peacefully without any call for concern. And as we don't grow up in that environment, we realize say that environments we don't put we together as Sierra Leoneans, and we don't endorse each other as Christians and Muslims, and we don't live together. We don't intermarriage. We don't marital homes. Then one of the parents then will decide to become a Christian and it is still practiced, and the other can be a Muslim, and we still don't have any issue with that as Sierra Leoneans. So definitely amount of tolerance we will get as Sierra Leoneans, and we don't preserve that for decades and decades, and we will continue to preserve that. So I think it's very much important as a nation for us to be together and work alongside each other. Well, I just go slightly away from that and highlight the fact, say, today we had football coming home, but we're not too sure yet, as England don't make their victorious victory against the host nation, Australia, for book them place in the World Cup final will take place on Sunday. I know they support England, so I'm not really saying an English supporter, definitely not. But for as long as you live in the UK, you are automatically going to support England. But the reason why we can support England is because of the amount of non-colored players in the squad. We only have two, very close to mixed race representation. They perform to the best of their ability. Of course, the one winner, one of the main key player for the team, we get red card. So basically, I realize in a 2-game ban you get, so we might hopefully see in the final. But that is much we're going to say about football, and we go away from football and focus on the program itself. We'll feel to say now the most important thing for the reason why we're here. I don't know what thing that happened to my mouse. Okay, fine. My mouse don't come back on track. Today, we are talking about something that is very dear to Christians in Sierra Leone. And of course, we know Christianity is one of the oldest serving religion in the world. And definitely, Christianity don't explode in Africa, the sub-region, and also it don't spread into Sierra Leone. We don't make many Sierra Leoneans are now Christians today, and they will be very proud to say they are proud Christians and true Christians and practicing the religion to the best of their ability. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the specific group of Christians that we can talk about today, and some of the background and stuff that we will feel to say is very much relevant for make we highlight some of these concerns. And these concerns are not just within just Christianity, is also alongside the Islamic sect as well. But we need to talk about the Islamic sect of this particular aspect of voting. We talk about today, we focus more on Christianity. The denomination of Christianity that we're going to be talking about today is primarily the Methodist Church, which is one of the well-known denominations of Christian faiths. And these Christian faiths don't spread right across the world, including a specific area in Sierra Leone. I will just give a short brief background about this particular Christian sect and the reason why I think it is very important for us to be here this evening and talk about these issues that we think are very much important to, I would say, the church elders, the older members of the church who think it is very important to be raising some of these concerns, and also younger generations of the church-going congregation, which I think should be in the position to support this particular initiative, because they are the ones who are physically, financially, mentally, and possibly psychologically able to deal with these issues. So over the years, it was observed that Methodist ministries who retired from the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone had nowhere to live after their retirement, meaning most of them who have served in the Methodist Church for like decades of their retirement, when they possibly must have decided to leave mainstream occupation of becoming maybe lawyers, doctors, or other form of practice, they decided to go into full-time ministries. And these ministers have served the community for another extension of maybe 10 or 20 years of their retirement age, until they get to the age wherein they cannot afford for themselves physically anymore, they cannot afford for themselves financially, and they cannot afford for themselves to be able to survive as individuals within society. So what are the things that they're suffering most from? Just imagine the mental health status of these ministers approaching retirement, who are not financially strong to provide housing for themselves and their spouses. So these are some of the issues that have been going on within our communities, not just in Sierra Leone, but possibly within the sub-region as well. So for that reason, specifically, we are going to bring in somebody who has served in that ministry for decades and also served within the UK ministries for over 3 decades. Well, as you know, for somebody to be able to do such a thing in terms of serving the Almighty God that we all believe in, as in the creator of man, it is something remarkable. So I'm going to give him my best applause before I introduce him to the platform. And this person is none other than Reverend John Macaulay. Reverend, welcome to the program, and say hello to the viewers and give them a short, brief history about yourself, how far you've come from to where you are right now within the Methodist range, and whatever you are doing currently in terms of your contribution towards Christianity in the UK. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Tiboy. Thank you. Good evening, viewers, and God bless you all. My name is John Macaulay. I hail from the nation of Sierra Leone and from the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone. I was called at the age of 16 to serve the Lord, and my journey with Christ and ministry began in Sierra Leone. And I was ordained as a Methodist minister in the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone. And I served in 1 or 2 circuits during my time in Sierra Leone. And when I came to the United Kingdom, I became a member of the United Reformed Church, where I have served as a minister for 30 years this year. But so my journey began in the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone.
What was it like in Sierra Leone serving within the Methodist Church? Because I grew up partially within the reign of the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, specifically in the provincial towns of Kenema and a little bit in Kono. But I think, as I said earlier on, my grandparents were one of the initial founding members of the Methodist Church in the Kenema district area. So I have a little bit of understanding of the Methodist Church. So what was the experience like there if you want to make comparison to what the Methodist Church was like 30, 40 years ago compared to what it is right now?
Well, I must say, in those days, from a personal experience, my ministry was full with joy and enthusiasm. I was a young man, called at 16, and I think by the time I worked as a catechist and went to college and did 4 years training, I actually was ordained before I was 30. So I was full of life and vitality, and it was a joy. And the church received me very well. So it was joyful, it was exciting. And, you know, we were getting results. One of the things I was involved in was the Boys Brigade. You know, and before I left Sierra Leone, there was 100 boys in the 13th Freetown Company, which was associated with St. John's Maroon Church. The church grounds were so small that we began to hold our meetings at Regent Square Municipal School compound. So it was joyful.
The Boys Brigade in Sierra Leone in existence, because I've never heard about it.
It has just been revived in the recent years, and I think Victor Baba Richards is taking the lead. Yes, it has just been revived, but still alive in the Methodist Church.
I know Victor Baba Richard very well. Like I said, I have a very strong link with the Methodist churches in Sierra Leone, and I think I think it was a year ago, they had a jamboree at the Family Kingdom, and they had to march all the way from stadium to the Aberdeen beach. And I think we covered that event, and they assembled at the outside Family Kingdom, where they had their final session. And it was a very impressive moment, because it was full of young boys and girls who were actually spreading the gospel into various parts of the country. Yeah. That was something that was remarkable. Hope we're going to be seeing a lot of that happening, because like I said earlier on, the practice has grown for decades and it has extended to Sierra Leone, but we have seen a huge decline in the formation of those mainstream churches. So what are some of the challenges that the Methodist Church were faced with in those days, compared to the way how there have been a lot of various different churches within our communities in Sierra Leone? What are the challenges that you guys are faced with?
The challenges have always been there, and the point is, the challenges then have more or less compared to now it's like now it's been magnified. You know, like the decline in church attendance, and in Sierra Leone today there is a lot of emerging churches. Some would refer to them as the Pentecostal churches, or African independent, or African initiative churches. So they are like doing very well, and they are growing, you know, and for some reason, quite a good number of the members of the Protestant churches still belong to these Pentecostal churches. And that's one of the current challenges now, from my opinion.
So when you say belong, are they coexisting alongside each other, or they are practicing the same kind of way of worship? What is the comparison for them to be working together? Or
for instance, they would attend their own church, 7:30 early communion, and 9 o'clock or 9:30 they are worshiping at a Pentecostal church.
The challenges on that. Why is that happening? Is there a difference in practice?
I think there's a difference in worship. There's a difference in vitality. There's a difference in preaching.
Can you share some of those differences, if you may?
I think, for instance, in terms of worship, the Pentecostal churches would have not a choir as such, but a praise team. And they will be worshiping with choruses. They'll be worshiping sometimes in our lingua franca, in Creole or Liba or Timini. They will be worshiping in our native dialect. And of course, they are so welcoming. You don't have to have a suit and a tie to attend. But I must say, in the recent years, I have also realized that the mainstream churches have also been a bit relaxed. Some of them have begun to have musical instruments alongside the pipe organ. Some of them have begun to be relaxed in their attire as well. So it is like they are learning from the Pentecostal churches.
So has there been, sorry.
No, I just want to say that a lot of mainstream churches now have what one would refer to as a time of praise or a time of worship as part of their traditional service.
So what was the difference in attire for the mainstream churches to be able to adapt to the new form of worship with the other new churches emerging in, well, I will not say just in Sierra Leone, but all over the world?
I think really, you need to be in your Sunday best, really. And for most people, when we were growing up, you had to have a shirt and a tie and a jacket, and a lot of women would have their hats on, etc., etc., which is not the case as it is now. But that vibrancy in worship is a very crucial factor in attracting people to God's house.
So does the vibrancy create a difference in terms of accepting the Holy Spirit in a different format, or the traditional way or the conventional way of practice, which is the Bible being read in church, sermon being said by the pastor, and congregation may sing one or two hymns, collection is collected, and everybody dispatched? Is that something that people think is too much of a conventional way and they don't find it very much attractive anymore, wherein the act of worship is now being joyful? You do praise and worship, you exalt yourself, you sing high, you let out some steam. Sometimes it makes a lot of difference. Is that what has created the impact of these new churches to be fastly growing compared to the conventional churches?
I would say part of it. And also these new churches, it's about operating in the prophetic ministry and, prophecy and vision.
Having to prophesy visions for...
That's right, yes.
Right.
And our people tend to lean more towards that sometimes as well.
But they're using the same practice of the Bible. The same Bible is the same Bible that they used to prophesy. Is it not the same Bible they also use in conventional churches?
Well, it is the same Bible, but the practice is different. And I don't operate in such ministry, so I would delve
you will be able to tell us details. Well, let me just make a brief example. As a practicing Muslim myself, we always say there are two forms of Islamic practices. You have the ones that we call the spiritual Islamic practice, which means we call them the Moriman in Sierra Leone, but they still use the same Quran for actually doing those kind of rituals, religious rituals that will prophesy certain things or predict certain things. But they're using the same Quran, but at the same time, you have the mainstream Islamic practices that will not prophesy anything to you, but they're still using the same Quran. So what you tend to see most is the fact that the ones that are doing the spiritual practices with the same Quran are the ones who are referred to as the Mori men or the Juju men, who actually do the good and bad things within the Islamic sector. When it comes to the Christianity side of things, these are the same people who use the same Bible, and they use it to prophesy or to do fortune tellers. They tell the future of certain people by using the same Bible. Why is that practice not common alongside the mainstream churches? Is this something that is a taboo that they think they should not practice because it is not of what the religion is actually accepting?
Well, I can only talk about what I know. And what I know, that Christianity declares a gospel whereby its followers are encouraged to have a personal faith with Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. Everyone is encouraged to grow in their personal faith, hence repentance, and then we talk about sanctification, which is people's daily gradual growth in the Lord. And so we present Christ to the people. And when the people embrace Christ, then their journey with Christ becomes a lifelong journey, we hope, in Jesus' name.
And as we are moving on, I just want to touch on something that is possibly very important. Is it a full-time job for what you have done over the past 30 years in the UK and for the amount of years that you spent in Sierra Leone as a religious leader. Is it a full-time job?
Yes. I was called, as I said earlier on, at the age of 16, and I've done nothing else in terms of full-time job than being a servant of God. I was full-time in the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, and I'm full-time in the United Reformed Church in the UK.
So how do you get paid?
Oh, we are paid on a monthly basis. We get what is referred to as stipends. So all the churches in the URC pay a contribution to the Central Church on a monthly basis, M&M, Ministry and Mission contribution. And all the ministers in the United Reformed Church get paid from the Central Fund.
So not to say what your salary is. So basically you've been able to survive within your salary scale of what you've been given as a stipend to run your daily activities as a normal husband with families around you.
By the grace of God.
Okay, and that goes right across board for even churches in Sierra Leone and in other parts of the world. As long as you're underneath that sort of church and you're serving it for full time, you'll still be able to get paid.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're now seeing, what about the ones that are not in a full-time ministry like you? Are they still being paid on a part-time basis, or they don't take salaries at all?
It all depends on the denomination itself. Every church has got its own structure. But for an example, those who are not paid are referred to as non-stipendary ministers. So they may be working as an accountant in the bank, so they get their salary there. They may be working as a painter, they get their salary there. But when it comes to the church, they would be given expenses as and when necessary. But it all depends on their agreement with the church. But they come to serve in that capacity, not in the full-time capacity.
Okay, it's good to know, because that raises another concern for something that we've been looking at over the past couple of years. Do you have anything that is put towards your pension, as in when you retire, whether you're going to be giving your pension for the fact that you have served this community or this church on a full-time basis for maybe 5, 10, 15, or 20 years?
Well, the URC has a structure that accommodates for that. Yes, every month something goes towards our retirement pension. Okay,
so you definitely will be looked after when you finally retire. Do you have any retirement age, or it's just something that you might choose to do at a given point in time?
I think, if memory serves me right, at the age of 68, but even when you retire, you can go on a part-time basis.
Okay. Well, now let's get to the program itself, as we're here today, not just to talk about the Methodist practice of worship, but also to talk about some of the concerns that I think you discovered or you've been given the calling to take upon yourself. So in brief, what were some of the reasons for you to go into this new project of yours, which I want you to announce to the world, which is called the Remish project? And can you just clarify what that project stands for and why you think you are the chosen one to take upon this project, especially for what you have seen and based on your experience? Over to you, sir.
Yes, thank you. Remish actually stands for Retired Ministers Housing Scheme. Retired Ministers Housing Scheme. As I said earlier on, I hail from the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone. And as a United Reformed Church minister, every 10 years, we have 3-month sabbatical. And at my second sabbatical, which was 10 years ago, I actually spent that time with the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, and I spent 3 months serving the church at Wilberforce Circuit, and I was attached to Ebenezer Methodist Church in Godrich. But before the expiration of that period, God gave me the vision to build houses for ministers. I contemplated on it, and then I shared with the Methodist Church authorities. And of course, they welcomed the idea, and that was how the project was born. So we do have a group in Sierra Leone, based in Freetown, of Remish, and we have a group in London. So we've got two teams, one in Sierra Leone and one in London, that are doing fundraising activities for this project. But I must say to you, the Methodist Church Sierra Leone has embraced the project, and one Sunday every year, every December, one Sunday in the month, is actually donated towards fundraising for the project. And we have live patrons, we have people that make pledge in London as well as in Sierra Leone to help us raise funds for this project.
One Sunday a year would be enough for raising funds to build a house. We know how much it costs to build a house in Sierra Leone right now. You're talking about a couple of thousands of dollars. A minimum of an average house in Sierra Leone will cost not less than 40 to 50,000 pounds per se.
Yes.
That would be the average cost of a minimum house in Sierra Leone, maybe a 2-bedroom house. I mean, if you are looking forward to raise collection once a year, to raise that amount of money to build a house, what's the amount of ex-pastors or reverends are you looking at? Do you have a collection already, or you haven't even started yet to identify those that you think will be qualified for such projects?
I think really the issue about the one Sunday in December, it's about getting the church to own the project. But the church does more than that, because it's got active members, okay, lay as well as ordained, that are financing the project on a well as in the UK, so we can generate some money. We've built 2 houses since we started. You know, the idea is, if you are a minister in the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, and you don't come from a middle class or wealthy family, when you serve the Lord for 20, 30, 40 years and you retire, there is no place for you to live. And so this project, Remish, is addressing that. The 2 houses we built are actually now occupied. And that was phase 1. We are now on phase 2, whereby we have actually started to build the 3rd house, referred to as Dove houses. And the current Dove house that we are building is like 2 in 1. Because each house, you know, would have 2 living accommodations, 2 bedrooms, a living room, kitchenette, toilets, bathroom, front and back veranda. And that is costing us $60,000. But when it is built, it would house 2 ministers and their families. So that's the project we are now on. And really, it is necessary, it is needed. So we are inviting the world to join us in this vital, needed, necessary project.
Reverend, I may want to ask you this. Don't find it offensive in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. I know what you're trying to do is something remarkable. Have you secured one for yourself before we start building houses for other ex-pastors and ministers?
I would honestly say to you, yes.
Thank you. Now, the reason why I'm asking is because
can I just say?
Yes, please.
The reason and the purpose for myself and the team in London and the team in Sierra Leone, it's not about us. It's about others. And all of those working hard would not occupy these houses, but they feel the call to respond to the gospel, to help others. I thought I'd just make that clear.
Okay, I think that is clear enough for me to understand, and also for the viewers to understand. And I guess viewers, you can make your contribution on the chat, and we'll come and read some of your comments and statements later on as the program is ongoing. But I want to go back again to Reverend Macaulay just to clarify on a few things. And you said the others, as in the other members of the organization in the UK, what is it comprises of? Is it a mixture of young, old, retired, still working class, or any other people within the community that are part of this particular project?
Honestly, age is a number. So we were all young, including myself. We're all young. But in the UK, we have a team of 10. We have a team of 10 devoted, dedicated men and women who are running, with this project. And as I said, they're all young and they are just committed to the Lord.
Did you single-handed pick them, or they were chosen by various different people within the church sector, or they were just somebody who came upon them and said, we want to volunteer as a part of this project? How were they selected?
I think the best way to say God brought us together. It's a beautiful team, and the one in Sierra Leone, God brought us together as well, because the commitment of these Remish members, all we can say is we give God the glory.
Let's slightly go away from this Remish project just a little bit, and we're coming back to it at some point. And the reason why I want us to do that is the amount of value that has been placed on religious leaders in Sierra Leone at this current point in time, when we've known that the religious aspect of the churches and mosques in Sierra Leone has been polarized by politics. How are you dealing with that situation?
Well, all I can say is that religious leaders are religious leaders. Politicians are politicians. And we have a gospel to proclaim. That is what God has called us to. But religious leaders are the voice of the voiceless. And I pray in Sierra Leone, in the UK, all over the world, religious leaders fulfill that role given to us by God by being the voice of the voiceless and declaring the truth. That's our mandate. But I'm not other than an expert to qualify or to comment on any particular situation. But we are the voice of the voiceless, and we must declare the truth. That's the role of God's servants in the world.
So let's say, for example, there is a potential candidate that is qualified to get a house being built for him or her and supposed to be moving into that apartment, and there were concerns being raised by, say, for example, the congregation, not in approval because this particular individual has been involved in political practices that has jeopardized their credibility for them to be able to benefit from this Remish project. How will you deal with a situation like that? Even though it hasn't happened yet, but are we going to be seeing that to happen, and how will it be dealt with if we get into that situation?
Well, apart from the management team, we have a management committee. And that management committee is responsible for recruiting, interviewing the ministers that would live in these accommodations. So that job would be best done by them. But your point is taken.
So are they going to be owning this house full-blown without no like a lease for maybe 10, 15, 20 years? Or when they died, what happened to the house? Does the house still belong to their inheritance, who will be maybe their direct kids?
That's a good question. But because we are an emerging project, we are still trying to wrestle with some of those concerns. But as of now, ministers occupying those houses would live in them until they pass away.
Was that not the previous arrangement for the ones that were not hosted by the churches? Basically, some of them have houses rented for them whilst they were serving. And the sooner they end their services, they're becoming homeless.
Well, really, when you are serving as a Methodist minister, you live in a church manse house for the church. If you serve in that area for 5 years, when you've been transferred to another area, then you're going to move out of that house and the new minister moves in. So that is the operation across in a global scale.
So when eventually you end your term of service, that's the time now you will not have nowhere to go if
yes,
you don't have an accommodation being built by yourself.
That is correct, sir. That is correct. And hence, these houses that we are trying to build or began to build would address such situations.
Is this houses going to be built within the municipality of Freetown, or is it going to be taken to the provincial towns of Sierra Leone or otherwise?
Excellent question. Remish has a rolling vision. The Methodist Church operates in 3 provinces in Sierra Leone: the Western District, Bokenema, and Kailao-Kono districts. So we have begun building in Western area in Freetown. Eventually, we would go to Bokenema and then to Kailao-Kono. What we have done, we have asked the leaders in Bokenema and Kailao-Kono to secure land so that eventually, when the project heading in their direction, the procurement of a land will not be a problem. But it's a rolling vision. So wherever you retire, there'll be a house for you. That's the whole purpose of it.
So who owns the land? Is it the church or the locality?
Well, for instance, the houses that have been built and are being built in Freetown is owned by the church. So we are building at the back of Ebenezer Methodist Church, Allentown. And that land is owned by Methodist Church, Sierra Leone. And Methodist Church, Sierra Leone released the land to us.
The reason why I'm asking that question is there is a huge controversy with land ownership in the provincial towns of Sierra Leone, specifically geared towards one specific tribe, who are the Creoles. I'm not saying that the Creoles are the leaders of all those churches. I'm just giving an example that might create some amount of controversy if this project wanted to go to places like the provincial towns of Sierra Leone, be it Kenema, Kailao, or Kono, as you mentioned. There are going to be challenges because if the landowners realizes that the people who are running this project are primarily from the Creole tribe, or they are not supposed to own land in the provincial towns, are they going to be given the rights to buy the land outrightly by the church or the individuals who are running the project?
Well, the issue about Creoles and non-Creoles doesn't come into play here. What happens is the church. So the land will be owned by the church in Kenema. The land will be owned by the Methodist Church in Kailao, like how the land is owned by the Methodist Church in Freetown. And what is going to happen, every area would have a Remish team. So when we go to Kailao-Kono, we're going to have a Remish team of people that live and work in Kailao-Kono. So, and that land would be owned by the church that they are being stewards of. And like how the team in Freetown is running with the vision to build the houses, So the teams in Kalaukono and Bokenema will do the same.
All right, let me come to Femi quickly. I'll come back to Reverend Macaulay, because I think we slightly going to slightly deeper into the premises itself in terms of the furniture facilities that are going to be installed in some of these houses. I know that is very crucial. I don't know whether you're going to be doing it by the taste of the individual or there's a specific template that you're going to follow. But the reason why I want to bring Femi into this particular discussion is not just for him to say hi and hello viewers, but also this is something that is very dearly to him, because like I said earlier on, this is a project that we wanted to take upon ourselves to run for the past couple of years, but there has been so many controversial challenges surrounding it. And I think when we realized that this is a project that is going to be run by yourself, we were very happy to have you on board. And this is the reason why we're here this evening. Femi, over to you. Don't just say hello to viewers and that's it, but at least express your own views about some of the concerns regarding this particular Remish project. It might not be your project today, but I think you had so much interest in this specific project over the past couple of years. And I know the reason why, but definitely I'll leave it up to you to give your own concerns and expression about why this project means so much to you, and us as well. Over to you, Femi.
Hello, Tibo. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Viewers, can you hear me? I hope my mic is okay today and I'm not having the issues I had last week. T-Boy and Reverend, thank you very much. We appreciate for all what you've said and done. And yes, T-Boy, you're right. This is a cause close to our hearts. I'll start off by saying, I got involved, well, not in the Remish project, but I got involved in a similar discussion years back. And the main reason is I frequently visit Sierra Leone, and it's a shame that we see a lot of elderly people in general that don't have much. People who have worked their entire lives, and at the the latter stages of their lives, they tend to struggle because there is no social what's the word, they're not provided for by the state like how we have in the UK and in other countries around the world. And then the discussion with a few friends led up to we're looking at different sectors, but more in particular we started to talk about the clergy and how they're supported when they get to retirement age. Obviously, we have, as you guys stated, we have two sets of different denominations. Well, there's more, but there's two in particular, the circular churches and the current newer churches. I'm not really sure how they're classified as. And, the discussion led to how charismatic these newer churches are and how young people are attracted to these churches, blah, blah, blah. And how the old churches, the churches that we were born into and grew up, losing congregation. A lot of young people are going to these new churches and forsaking the churches where they were initially at. And we started discussing what causes or what issues those brought up. And one was this, and a particular reverend was shown to me in one of the churches, and how he was struggling, whilst he was working, and he was soon to retire. And obviously, when he retired, there was nothing there. We started discussing that. We were going to put up a show, and shortly, whilst we were planning that show, I got a call from a friend who introduced me to your project, Reverend, and told me what you guys were on about. And I said to her, well, wow, great minds think alike, because we were literally trying to do something ourselves in this issue. And at that point, we decided that in the near future, we would have you and your team on our platform to talk about the issues that we have in Sierra Leone with retired, people of the cloth, if I can call you guys that.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that you're here. I have a question for you. And I think Tibor kind of touched on it about, if when you guys build these houses and house these people and their families, what happens when these people pass on? Do the families get kicked out? Or is there a scheme for widows and children for a certain amount of time?
Well, again, that's a very important question. We can only do some things and we cannot do everything. The idea of us building the houses and for the minister to live there until they pass on, that's our brief at the moment. With regards to what happens after the minister passes away, that can be the responsibility of Methodist Church Sierra Leone. We are hoping that eventually we would build a lot of houses that can address some of these issues. But we can only talk about what God has called us to do and what we are doing and doing well. But in terms of the future, and after the ministers passed away, then possibly the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone would be able to respond to that, and we see what they are able to do in that regard. But I believe there is hope, because starting by addressing this whole complex issue in this way, from this perspective, in terms of those who cannot afford, can now have a place to live, it's a step in the right direction. One woman said to me when I was in Sierra Leone some years back, she said to me, Reverend Macaulay, I think my child would come and be a minister of the gospel now, because when he retires, there'll be a place for him to live. And I never forget that.
Femi, can I just quickly come to this question before I forget? Reverend, so as part of the initial organizers, would you make recommendations for after retirement or after these religious individuals have occupied these particular houses after they die? Because the reason why I'm asking these questions is because there are going to be a lot of controversies surrounding their deaths, as in who takes over these premises. Because if the premises is being built specifically for their retirement after life service towards the church, are they outrightly going to own this property, which means it belongs to their entire family? Like the woman said to you, I will now dedicate my son to the church because I believe my son will have a retirement home to live after his service. But what happens to his children? Are they going to inherit the benefits of their dad's fruitful endeavor to serve the church? I think that one is very important for Remish to look into it, not just to leave it in the hands of the Methodist Church to make that decision. I think you have, as members of the Remish, to make recommendations of where or what will happen after the demise of these individuals. I don't know what you possibly will say towards that, or you're still going to look into it and possibly come up with some form of various different solutions after that.
I want to thank you for raising those points that you just mentioned. But what I would honestly say is that it is not off the radar of Remish UK or Remish Sierra Leone. It is not. And because we work in close collaboration with the Methodist Church Sierra Leone, I can say to you that by the grace of God, God would give the Methodist Church Sierra Leone and of course Remish itself wisdom as we continue to have a conversation on this important matter as we journey into the future. But it is not off our radar.
Okay, over to you, Femi.
Thank you, Reverend. Quick question, or a few questions. And I'm sorry if you've already touched on them. But is this project specifically for Methodist reverends, or does it spread does it spread wider? And just to make a statement, I am a Methodist. My father's family are from the Ebenezer Freetown at Regent's Road, or Circular
Okay.
Road, should I say? And my mother are from Tabernacle Church, again Circular Road. So I am, West African and Wesleyan Methodist. So
Yes.
I am a staunch Methodist. But I'd like to know if this is specifically for Methodist priests, sorry, not priests, reverends, or clergymen as a whole in Sierra Leone.
Honestly, it is for Methodist ministers in Sierra Leone. And I would say to you at the moment, if we continue to grow and expand as God would have it, I am sure if there are other clergy that need help, we would not close our eyes. But as of now, it is for Methodist ministers from the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone that are retired. I think I must add, I need to check this out, but I have heard that the Anglican Church in Sierra Leone, as well as the West African Methodists, have begun to think to do something similar for their ministers. So that's actually good as well.
Okay, great. So, Tiwa, sorry to jump in on your show. How can we help? You know, as I said, I am a Methodist. I would like to help. This is a cause that's close to my heart. But when I say, or when I ask, how can we help? I'm not just talking about myself, T-Boy, my colleague Juma, and the rest of the Sierra Gem team, but how can Sierra Leoneans and friends of Sierra Leone help to, to help for you guys to grow? Because as you said, if your vision now is for Methodist reverends, but if things grow, it could be pushed out to a larger number of non-Methodists.
Yes.
The more others like us come on board, I believe the faster the growth would be. So how can we help you guys help Sierra Leone?
Well, it's a very important question because the aspect of contact capital is quite essential for projects like these. The more people that know, the more would know, and the word would continue to be spread. And I need to come a lot more on your show. But then not only myself, but the team in the UK or a team in Freetown, possibly we need to share about the Remish dream more often. And of course, use all the media tools, that we have available to us to share this worthy cause so that people would know what we are doing. So it's to spread and spread and spread the good news of Remish through all the tools, technological tools available, and of course by, sharing with friends and families too.
Great. T-Boy, again, sorry, Reverend, I've got some pictures that I was sent.
Yes.
I don't know which order they're in. I'm happy to share them. So when you want to share them, please let me know and I'll do so. But please excuse the fact that I have not imported them in any particular order.
Why not share the photographs now? Because people can have see some of the stuff that we've done.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 2 minutes. T-Boy, over to you, and I'll get the photos ready.
Me for that contribution. Like I said earlier on, this project is very much of your interest and the reason why it's best known to us, and we're going to leave it like that. But let me come back to Reverend Macaulay and possibly ask a couple of more questions in regards to the structure. What are some of the major challenges that Remish is faced with in terms of most of the activities that you're putting together in Sierra Leone?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What are some of the challenges that Remish is faced with in terms of all the logistics that you're putting together in building these houses in Sierra Leone?
Well, I think one of the challenges is getting a lot of people on board, because as we have discussed earlier on, the aspect of human, capital, contact capital is very important. So, but we are trying to get not only Methodists, but Sierra Leoneans and friends of Sierra Leoneans involved in this project across the world. So it is not an easy task, but we are getting there. And also the idea of money, finance. We need money to get these houses done, and we have no sponsorship in the traditional sense of the word. The money that is used for these houses comes from those who pledge money to our team in Sierra Leone and our team in London. Those who attend our Thanksgiving services, those who give us one-off donation, those who actually attend our luncheon sale, or any of our fundraising events. We're having a luncheon sale on Saturday. I hope we will get some time to reflect a little bit on
yeah,
that.
Sure. Definitely, we'll get to that.
So money is an issue. So if anybody knows of sponsors or those who would be able to release some money for this worthy cause, then we are very willing for us to be directed and guided by them. And of course, we have some Methodist churches in the UK that are actually helping us to fundraise. We have some churches in Birmingham where we go every year, and actually they do some fundraising for us. And that's where one of our members, Reverend Marilyn Slow, serves. So she organizes that yearly event, and we do get some money when we go up to that.
Reverend, we know for sure that Sierra Leoneans like to take advantage of situations like this, and we're very good at that. As a nation, we always fall into the categories of things that are only going to benefit us. Do you think we're going to be seeing a huge increase in the practice of reverends within the Methodist churches all over Sierra Leone just because there is a guarantee houses to be built for them at their retirement? Do you think this is going to increase the capacity of reverends in Sierra Leone?
Well, we hope it does, because God calls into ministry. God calls into ministry. But it is also very important that sometimes, when I was called at the age of 16, okay, and my family steered me into ministry because I said that is what God has called me to do. But then you might get to some reality whereby some parents might say, well, yes, God has called you, but, I think your second option of being a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer would be more advantage for you in later life, So, but God calls into ministry, and honestly, we are not doing these ministers a favor. They deserve it. They deserve it to be looked after, to be cared for. In the West, I would say in the Methodists, the URC, Anglican churches, I would say in the UK, when ministers retire, there is a house for ministers to live. So it's not doing them a favor. It's a matter of necessity. So Sierra Leone now has started.
The reason why I asked the questions is primarily based on the fact that the other denomination churches are making serious money in the structure of their churches. When I say making serious money, we've seen the lifestyle of their pastors, we've seen the lifestyle of what they wear, the cars that they drive, the amount of houses that they own, and even some of them have fleets of vehicles that they drive every other day. Their kids are living luxurious lifestyle. Their kids are going to private schools and universities, which is attracting more of their congregation to be part of what they do and also want to be like them, which has brought the emerged sense of churches being reopening in Sierra Leone every other day. So I'm asking whether this is going to be something that will influence the Methodist Church to actually attract more younger people into the denomination based on the fact that they're not just going to talk about the Word of God, but also have guaranteed benefits that will secure their household for the rest of their lives. But the only challenge that lies on that now is, are they going to be fully own these houses, or possibly decisions will be made further on to determine whether the house is going to belong to them for life. But I see Femi raising his hand up. I don't know whether he wants to buttress into this. Over to you, Femi, and then Reverend will take over the questions.
Yes, C-boy. I wanted to help Reverend to answer that question that you were just asking. If I may, I just want to lend a hand.
Oh, sure, you can. Sure, you can.
You know, I think that if as Christians, I don't think we're here to discuss or to debate on the differences between the Pentecostal churches and our churches. I think that yes, if we know there are challenges in Sierra Leone. We know there are challenges for everybody in Sierra Leone. So if there is an element of support, of course, people are going to want to be part of that, and not necessarily that's the only reason why they'll go there. As Reverend said earlier on, it's the calling. But then, you know, if your calling is for something, and the restrictions or the hardship in some areas isn't allowing you to take up that calling, it's something. So if something comes in place where those fears are now lifted, then of course more people will come. So I believe that people will not just go there because they're going to get a house, if I can put it crudely. I think people will go there because maybe before they were having second thoughts because they didn't see the support model. And now if there is a support model in place, it will make things slightly easier for them to make the decision to transit to there, if I can use that word.
What's your own take on it? Reverend, are you there?
I am here.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot on this one.
No, I mean the whole idea is we have today what we refer to as the prosperity gospel.
Right.
And a lot of churches move down the prosperity gospel path. Now, what I think we also need to do, we need to actually decolonize. When the Methodist or mainstream traditions began to take root in Sierra Leone, even though we had local ministers, the majority of the ministers came from the West. And these ministers were not supported by Sierra Leoneans. They came from the West with all its wealth and everything. And so when the churches began to become autonomous, the issue of the pastors were not even paid by the church. Everything came from the West. So when the ministers moved out and returned back to the West, and our people, got into those positions, it has taken so many years. But unlike the Pentecostal churches who teach and educate their people to look after their pastors, their ministers, possibly it may be time for the traditional mainstream churches so to do. But the whole thing has begun to emerge. In Sierra Leone, in the Methodist Church, there is one Sunday a year that is dedicated to supporting the ministers. In my church in the UK, we have Ministers Appreciation Sunday. So things have begun to emerge to take away that colonial legacy that has made the church operate how it does operate now. And hopefully things would get better as the churches in Sierra Leone and all over the world, especially third world countries, appreciate their minister and pastors better.
I totally agree with you on that, Reverend, because the reason why I highlighted that question is based on the fact that we don't look after our own. We always say, oh, they are doing God's job, so they are being paid by God, but the bills has to be paid, and we have to be realistic about some of these things. We cannot shy away from saying the facts, and the fact of the matter is some of these pastors and reverends and people who are in authority in terms of the churches are struggling financially. They don't want to come down to the level of begging, and they will not, you don't expect them to do that. So I think it's a very good initiative to build them houses, but also as a leader in church, as a reverend yourself, I think there should be some amount of provision being put in place and make sure that these pastors or reverends in church are financially supported so that they will be able to support their own families. Because again, it's not an easy task for somebody to be dedicating their life to God and nobody gives them nothing in return. And some people might say, oh, God will pay them for the good work they do. But it's not all just about God will pay you back in return. But at the same time, your financial responsibility has to be taken care by you yourself. So I think personally, this initiative of Remish is a very good initiative. And I think, I don't know whether you have that sort of initiative alongside Remish to also look into the affairs of these serving reverends whilst they are still in service. Because I asked questions over the past couple of days within our own sector of what is happening. Why are these pastors not being paid well for them to be able to look after their families? And the complaint comes all over, like to say, well, the contributions that they make every other Sunday is not enough for the church, and the church has to run their own affairs, which is true. But what sort of priorities is the church giving to the leaders who are leading from the front, especially with the reverends?
I mean, before Femi comes, can I just say, it's all about structure. It's all about structure. Remish continues to have excellent collaboration with the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone. But we do hope that one day, Remish would engage the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone to put a structure in place. Take, for instance, like is done in the West. When you come into ministry, every month you pay something towards your pension and your retirement housing. So if that structure gets into Sierra Leone, when ministers come in to the ministry, the moment they begin to receive their stipend, something is being paid towards pension and housing, so that when you retire, it's sorted out immediately. But then we have to get that structure into Sierra Leone Methodist Church. How we go around it, I don't know. But, that is the type of structure that provides a vision and wholeness for ministers and their families.
I totally agree with the revolutionization of that particular aspect of management, which I think is very important. And that is the structure that we lack so much in Sierra Leone, which I think we should actually reinforce. So over to you, Femi.
Yes, so I, I totally agree there as well. In the UK, I've been contributing to a private pension for a while, and a lot of my co-workers didn't. And up to a few years ago, and then the government came and made it mandatory for everybody to have a work pension, as long as you're employed full time. You're supposed to have that. Your contribution can be minimal, but it needs to happen, because obviously the state in the UK realizes that in the future, when we get to pension age, there might not be a state pension. So it's important that when you're working, you put a little bit aside towards your retirement. So I like the sound of what I hear. I have one question or one dig at the churches in Sierra Leone, and particularly the Methodist churches as well. Um, Growing up, I knew quite a lot of properties that they stated were church properties. What has happened to all those properties? Are they all now owned by individuals? Are they still state? Are they still church properties? And if so, why aren't these properties being used to house some of these ministers with issues, or retired ministers? Question to you, Reverend.
Yeah, I think the Methodist Church still has properties, but what I think we need to understand that these are properties that are being used by ministers when they are in active service. They are called manses. So these are being used by ministers when they're in active service. You mentioned about Ebenezer. Yeah, Ebenezer might have at least, Ebenezer circuit might have 3 or 4 ministers at the same time. That circuit has got 6 churches, right? And if all of these ministers are full-time, then of course they all need to live in a manse. So the property that the church has is used by current ministers. It is when they retire that is when we have the problem, and that is what Remish is trying to address.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Is there any more, Femi, from you?
Not at the moment. So when you're ready, we can share the pictures.
I just want to not to forget the lunch on sale.
Yeah, that is where I'm coming to now. Before we share the picture, I think, Femi, you can share the pictures while we're talking about the fundraising activities by Remish. So, Reverend, yes. I know you highlighted a couple of fundraising activities that the church is undergoing, both in London and also in the suburbs of Manchester and other places. What are some of the major aspects of fundraising activities that the Remish has engaged into in terms of raising funds for this particular project?
Well, we have a Thanksgiving service every year, and we have a lunch on sale. These are the 2 main fundraising projects. And of course, we go to Birmingham. Yes, for the last couple of years, we've been going to Birmingham annually, you know, to meet with some of the churches there that Reverend Slow helps us to engage with. And then, of course, we have some people that pledge. You know, some people pledge, you know, to us, and they give us money on a monthly basis, you know. So that's how we do get money in terms of fundraising for our work. And we also have what we call some support our 500 for 5 challenge, whereby Remish members themselves aim to raise some money by getting people to support our project.
Reverend, just going through the pictures now. Is there anything you'd like to say about them? Do you want me to show them in any order?
No, I will just share as they appear. This is actually the current house being built, the first Dove house. This is the first dove house that's costing $60,000.
Okay, there's also this. What
This is
this?
the dove house in architectural form.
Okay.
That's how it would look.
That's
side by side, two houses.
Okay, and I've got a few. I don't know if they're completed or again.
This is excellent. These are the first two Remish houses that were built in phase 1.
Okay.
And if you look in front of the first house, you would see a building. That's the Ebenezer Methodist Church, Allentown. So these houses have been built at the back of the church. And the third house is just built just after the second house. Okay. So the land we've got to build about possibly half a dozen houses.
Okay, and the church there, is it the one with the red at the far end?
Yes, Femi, yes, that's the one. Yeah, yes. So that's the first two houses. And we want to thank all those who have supported us over the years with their money, their time, and their prayer to see what we have accomplished through their financial and other support. And we're asking, please continue to support Remish. And both houses are occupied at the moment.
By retired reverends?
Yes.
Great, great.
Okay, thank you very much, Reverend, for that. And I think those houses looks extremely comfortable for dwelling, and yes, it is nothing exorbitant, but I think that will host an individual of. I think you've placed emphasis on the fact that you don't want it. You want it to be age friendly, because I take these reverends are slightly going to be old, so they don't want to live in an accommodation that is not going to be friendly for them in terms of the height and everything.
Yes.
I think that was a very good initiative for you guys to look into all those areas. And I know definitely you're going to be looking into making it disabled friendly as well at some point, because most of those older people are not physically disabled, but they're struggling with their movement within that environment. But I think it's a very good initiative, and I would like everybody who is on the group right now or who is watching to go to the GoFundMe page and see what sort of contribution you can make towards this particular project. I know Femi has highlighted what can we do as not just as Sierra Leone Media, but also as members of the Methodist Church. You don't necessarily have to go to the Methodist Church to make your contribution. You're doing it in the name of God, and I think God will bless you for that contribution. Like we always say, the other sectors in various different religious denominations are doing extremely well in terms of looking after their own. So it is not impossible for the Methodist Church to be able to do this. And I think if Reverend Macaulay set the pace, it will encourage other mainstream churches to follow suit, because we've seen this challenge not just within the Methodist Church, but in other mainstream churches. So it will be like a stepping stone for the religious council members who are leading in front of all the religious aspects of Christianity in Sierra Leone to be able to think positively and bring this project upon themselves and make sure everybody benefits from it. But everything starts from a small corner and it grows eventually to a bigger picture. So, Reverend, I know a lot has been said about raising funds. What is your specific target for what you want to raise within this shortest period of time to end possibly this new financial year that we are starting? As you're now on another project, building another house, what are the immediate amounts of funds that you're looking up to raise within the next couple of months so that you'll be able to complete this particular project?
Honestly, we're looking at $50,000.
We're in the UK, you know, so we don't know much about those.
Well, you see, I missed my committee members straight away. My committee members would answer the drop of a hat.
Okay.
Tell me how much would $50,000 be?
The reason why I am specific about the amount in pounds is because the exchange rate is much slightly better or the same in terms of what we want to raise in regards to pounds and dollars. And we know Sierra Leone or other parts of the world are focusing on the denomination of using dollars a lot. So basically, I think that is where your project is coming from that angle.
Yeah.
I see Femi raising hand of what do you want to say, Femi?
I want to
Calculate.
so I don't really know what the current exchange rate is, but what I can say is if the target is $50,000, which most probably is around £44,000, but you know, what I think we should be saying is if we all know a friend who knows a friend who knows a friend who knows a friend, we form a community. You know, we can do this easy. If Reverend says, T-Boy, put your hand in your pocket and give him $50,000 or £45,000, T-Boy might struggle. But T-Boy, Femi, and a bunch of other like-minded people, if we all put our hands in our pockets and share this message to all of our friends. So if we have 1,000 people that puts $50 aside, we've reached our target. So for me,
I think it is very important to stress that.
Yes.
All of those who are going to be helping us, they might want to know about the future. If we have houses in abundance, we will not only house ministers from other denominations, but we would house elderly people in Sierra Leone that are looking for accommodation. It has started off with Remish, but God would take it to bigger and higher places for the people of Sierra Leone. And even if we have non-Sierra Leoneans retiring in Sierra Leone that need help, if the houses are there, then they would be used by God's people. It's about the nation, not about us. It's about God's people. But little is much when God is in it. So if everybody can give their own contribution, this dream would become a reality and everybody would rejoice and God would be praised.
So Reverend, tell us a little bit more about the launch and sale, the venue, the cost, or what should people expect in a launch and sale of this nature?
The launch and sale is taking place on Saturday, on the 19th of August, at the Upper Clapton United Reformed Church Hall in London. There is going to be a variety of food that people would buy. I am advising not to even cook on Saturday. Come and get your packed lunch from the Remish lunch on sale. Loads of variety of food that people could buy for their family. Let families see it as a day out. There is going to be wonderful raffle prizes. You know, there is going to be music. There is going to be dancing. There is going to be drinks. All of these in aid of fundraising for this worthy project. But unless you come and support us, wherever you are in London and out of London, it is a trip worth making to Upper Clapton United Reformed Church Hall. The hall is at entrance to the hall. It's at the back of the church. You can access that on Rosendale Street, E5. Rosendale Street, Upper Clapton, E5, 8GH. You won't miss it.
Okay, I will ask some of the members to please post those information on the chat group on both Facebook and YouTube so that we will have access to the information that is being just shared by Reverend Macaulay. So I will also want to encourage everybody else who is online to please check out the GoFundMe page. I'm going to copy that page right now and post it alongside the YouTube chat. So definitely we should be able to share that one soon, and everybody should be able to have access to the GoFundMe page. If at all you cannot make it to the event on Saturday, please try as much as you can to make your own little donation at the GoFundMe page, which I think will be meaningful to not just the members of the Methodist Church who are serving, but it might also go to the elderly within our community. I think it's a very interesting and important project that we should not just ignore, because we might fall short within the next couple of years or in the early future of our own lives, just in case some of us want to go into the ministry. Like, I'm actually looking at my brother Femi, who is definitely losing his ear to Reverend Macaulay, and he will possibly be a reverend. Will they open the way for you for make you become a reverend?
Amen.
You have so much representation in your family. I know definitely you will be the next pastor for the Bakers. So I have no doubt in that. And Reverend, I will put a tag on him. I will make sure that he's in contact on a regular basis, because his place of work can support initiatives like this. But you have to be on his case so that you'll be able to project it to them for them to understand the value behind it. Yeah. And I don't think he's taking it lightly at all. We're just laughing about it, but it is something that he's very passionate about. And the reason why...
Femi, I could assure you that Remish and myself will be a friend and a companion as you journey with the Lord. I'm not sure whether you have the leaflet of the luncheon sale, because if you have that, if you could flag that up so you can see the wonderful people that the team that we have, we work together. A team. We are 9 on the poster, but at least we are 10 all together. And these people, they are just great.
Thank you, have a copy. We'll share that soon. Let me do a copy of it.
Not at the moment, but I'm sure it's on its way. So
okay.
I will post that shortly. I actually do have it, so I will share it shortly. And yes, Reverend, this is very close to my heart. I said for many reasons, and I'll disclose some of them. So some years back, I was in Freetown, and an elderly relative who was blind came visiting, and you know, several times she visited whilst I was on holiday, and you know, her condition was not very pleasant for me. I remember her as a kid growing up, and how I saw her then. I wasn't very happy at all, and I raised questions. I seen, you know, I asked her initially, and then when she'd left, I spoke to the rest of my family, and I was asking, you know, what is the you know, what does the state do for people who have retired, and especially people who have disability, and in this lady's case was blindness, and I was told there's, you know, there's nothing much there, and that's where I started to dig into what happens after retirement in Sierra Leone. And then there was a reverend that I came across whilst talking to another friend who has now since passed, and who was struggling even whilst he was still working for the church. So, you know, so those are the main reasons why I said this is close to my heart, and I think that you guys are doing a wonderful job, because there's many of us see issues in and around not just Sierra Leone, but poor nations of this world, and we think that, you know, we haven't got the funds, we haven't got the resource, we don't have the talents, the know-how, the connections to get these projects done. But as I say, you know, in our language we can say Tibo can say no load with AB.
No load with AB. So you know how for total whether I for make the kata right or wrong.
Yeah, so you know, if to,
no,
to
yeah,
get,
I know load with AB.
Yeah, I know load with AB. So to get something done, we have to start. You know, no matter how hard, how expensive it might be, if we don't start, we will never get there. But if we start and get like-minded people together, then it's achievable. And as Reverend just said, it's not just Remish's vision that will be achievable, but in the longer run, if it's a successful undertaking, then Sierra Leone will benefit, because it will go to Methodist reverends, it will go to other clergy, retired clergy, and then it will go to elderlies in Sierra Leone, because these are the things that we lack. As I said, it started off with me looking at a blind lady who couldn't fend for herself. Her housing wasn't appropriate, and there was nobody, there's nothing there to give her that, you know, that comfort in the latter stages of her life. But I heard recently that there is a place, I think in Akisi, I'm not really sure, where who are now dealing with some elderly people and housing them and supporting them. I can't remember, somebody was telling me about that project. But you know, the point I'm trying to make is, if we all do a little bit, then things are possible.
I mean, I must say, when Remish was launched in Sierra Leone, possibly about 10 years ago now, it was launched at Methodist Church. And one of the retired ministers from Sierra Leone Methodist Church then, he was blind. It was so moving, because he was not only blind, he had no place to stay. And that was bringing an awareness of the necessity for this project. And right in the church, the hat was passed around and a special donation was raised for him. They don't have to be a brother. They don't have to be your sister. You don't have to know them. All you need to know is that they are God's child. And tomorrow, it might be your relation or somebody's relation that you know. Let us just do it for the people of God. Time.
Thank you very much, Reverend Macaulay, for that contribution that you've just made towards the blind person that you saw, what kicks off the initiative for you to introduce the Remish project into Sierra Leone. But I think the contributions that everybody has made so far has been fruitful, and we have seen the benefits of the few houses that has already been built and occupied by these former ministers into this particular accommodation. I think it's a very good initiative that people should work on. If you don't really have an interest, think about it, because again, like we said earlier on, little drops of water makes a mighty ocean. As much as we can come together in smaller numbers, we'll be able to increase that numbers as time goes on, and it will be a project that we'll all be proud of to say, I was part of this initiative 5, 10, 15 years ago. Now today, as old as I am, I will not be able to see people who have served in the name of God to be perishing in the streets of Freetown without not being looked after. I think it's a very important thing for you to be seeing your pastors or your reverend who you one time give so much respect and don't have a place to lay their head, for them to be comfortable after all the services that they've rendered to your family in terms of their naming ceremonies, wedding officiating, and other Sunday services that has been put together by all these ministers. So I think it's a very important project, and everybody should not jump on board, but think about it and see what sort of contribution you can make towards making it possible for Reverend Macaulay and the rest of the team to be able to build more houses for ex-members of the church, especially the Methodist Church. Like I said earlier on, my younger grandfather also emerges from the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, from the Eastern Province, which is Kenema, and he's definitely a household person within the Methodist Church in Sierra Leone, and he was also a musician. So I have direct connection to the Methodist Church myself, and I think it's something that I will possibly, likely, definitely going to be on board with in terms of fundraising activities. Will help and see how much we can improve your fundraising schemes, of how we can reach out to more people within our community who might be in the position to make their own little donation. So we'll not stop at this one for today's program. We'll continue to give you guys the support that we have. And also, I mentioned the infrastructural development of the houses, as in what sort of furnitures are being utilized in those particular houses. We might come in at some point to make some few donations. We can look at things that we can raise that are not fairly old, but something that will be meaningful, that will be something that you guys can take in terms of furnishing the houses? Because again, you cannot just build a house and leave it empty. You have to furnish it at some point, because some of these ex ministers possibly haven't accumulated enough materials or enough furniture for them to be able to move into those new houses. And what they have accumulated over the years will not fit into that houses that you're building, because it is going to be primarily for themselves and a few family members. So I think we'll be able to work on board this particular project in so many different ways. But let's come to the end of it now. Reverend, I know we've held you up for a couple of hours. Our normal program schedule is a minimum of 3 hours, but we're not going to keep you here for that long. Because for sure, people might be thinking you're going to hold on Reverend Macaulay to them for the next 5 hours. No, we're not going to do that to you. Definitely not. And let's come to the end of this project or this particular program for tonight's show. What will be your message to the viewers, a take-home message for them to be able to think when they finish watching this program, what they will take home and use it to benefit the Remish project? Over to you.
Is that there is a need for ministers who have served for years, and when they retire, they don't have a house. The socio-economic climate of the world, especially in Sierra Leone, doesn't make it possible for them to own a house. They are not paid enough to build a house during their term and time of service. So we need to support them. We need to help them. God has blessed us so we can be a blessing. So I appeal to the viewers. But also I want to thank the Remish team in Sierra Leone, the Remish team in London. Remish is not about me, it's about God. But above all, these two teams in Sierra Leone and London that are making the Remish dream a reality. It's about the two teams. So I really want to express my appreciation to the two teams, but also to all friends and supporters of Remish, non-Sierra Leoneans, Sierra Leoneans, God's people. I really want to say thank you. And even for those who would know about Remish today or for the first time and would start to support, we want to thank you in advance. We want to assure you that we are highly accountable, very, very transparent. In fact, the current house is being built by a British NGO called Home Leone. They are building the current house for us in Allentown. So pray for Home Leone as they actually continue to build this house. So I want to thank you all viewers, and thanks to Femi and T-Boy and to you all, and for Maria Makamara who got me onto this program. This is all the value of contact capital, where everyone is helping to make this vision a reality. So thank you, and God bless you.
Gwen, since you're still on, I would like to go to Femi, but if there's anything you want to add to what you've said so far, please come in at any given point in time when I get to Femi to say his final few words for today's program, and what will be your own take on the program to the viewers out there watching. Over to you, Femi.
So I would like to thank our viewers for joining us today. And on behalf of our viewers, I'd like to say, Reverend, thank you for sharing your project with us, and for spending the last couple of hours with us, educating us on some of the issues that our country faces, and in particular, elders in our country face, and in particular, retired reverends in the Methodist Church. We pray as God's people. We're hopeful We pray that your vision will come through. You will complete, well, no, you will not complete your project, but you will work on the project, because we believe that at the end of this particular phase, there will be many, many more phases as you expand what Remish will be provided in Sierra Leone. So for our viewers, I'd like you all to assist Remish to achieve these dreams. I won't say this dream, these dreams, because as I said, this is only the start, as Reverend stated to us. I said before, it takes a lot of people to do it, a movement of people to achieve anything. We can do many things on our own, but very few projects of this nature can be achieved by a single person. So if again, if we call on our networks and we all forsake a coffee a week, in the UK, that's about £7-8. If you buy at Starbucks or places like that, if you take one off a week, and that's roughly 40 to £50 a month, and you donate that to the Remish project. Imagine if 1,000 of us do that, how quick we could achieve what we're looking for. And for some of our viewers who are in America, Reverend begin by saying dollars. So you guys are the dollar men and women, similar. I don't know what a cup of coffee in America is, but I assure you it's not much different to what it is here. And if you guys forsake that one thing, or for you guys to buy expensive trainers this month, instead of buying that trainer or that pair of shoes, or that lady, instead of going to the hairdresser 4 times a month, you go 3 times, and the 4th time the money you donate it to a project like this. Imagine the changes that we could all contribute to in our country. This is a very good project. As I said, it's something that I was thinking about, and again, not knowing where to start, how to go about it. I approached both my colleagues, T-Boy and Juma, and I said, this is close to my heart. I need us to do a project. I need us to do a show on it to raise awareness that maybe we could find like-minded people to come in and help. We don't need to do that anymore. Remish is already doing that. So what we can do is support them on it. So I pledge my loyalty. I pledge my support. So if whatever you guys need, as long as God is willing and I have strength and the resources, I will put them to your thing. And I hope that some of my friends, family, and some people listening here who might have just come across our platform for the first time, or the seasoned watchers will follow suit and maybe not give £50, maybe £10, maybe £5. But if we all contribute to it, the quicker we will be able to raise money to finish phase 1 of this project, or phase 2, whatever phase it is at the moment, and push it even further to accommodate many, many more people that are struggling at the moment after retirement. On that note,
can I ask if
yes, please.
Is there any way people would want to find out more about us, in terms of them having a contact, an email address, or a telephone number, if they want to find out more about Remish after this show?
So what we can do, we apart from what we do here, we have our website, so we can try and Tibor is our web designer, so we can try and link your projects to our website and encourage people to visit our website to go on it. And because we broadcast every week, per se, a few days here or there, what we can do is whatever materials that you guys have, please feel free to share it with us, and we will use those materials to remind people on a weekly basis on the project that you guys are doing, how they can reach out to you, and you know, we can be here as a sister partner.
I mean, that is very helpful, and I will ask our dear sister Mariama Kamara to be in touch with you with regards to these details. Can I finally thank our live patrons in Sierra Leone and in the UK and wherever the world they are for all the support they have given us over the years. I want to thank also my dear wife Olive and our two young men, John and Daniel. Their support has been enormous over the years in this project as well. I want to thank Four Oaks Methodist Church in Birmingham and all the churches in the Four Oaks Methodist Church and all the ministers, including our own dear Reverend Merlin. I want to thank Upper Clapton United Reformed Church, the church where I've served for 30 years, its leaders and its members, for owning Remish in such a big way and making it their own. And finally, our team members in the UK and their families, our team members in Sierra Leone and their families, I want to thank all, and my colleagues, Methodist ministers in Sierra Leone as well.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Macaulay. Now this then say if you never know left room for any ola, that you them for go monto you I don't talk about English monto for me over to you. That's it them for go monto you know. But anyway, again, we know these things happen all the time. That's why we leave room for any kind of errors that we possibly haven't envisaged that will happen. But to add more to what Femi has just suggested, I think what we can do as Sierra Leone Media, for the fact that we host programs every other week, we'll be able to put together a promotional video for the Remish, and that promotional video will have a link or what to do or where to donate in case you want to make any donation towards the project. So that will be ongoing, running every other day when we have our programs, and it will be a basis of your reference points so that people will be able to know exactly what to do if they want to make donations. Secondly, I know that will be a maybe medium or long-term project, but Sierra Leone Media will suggest to possibly build a website for the Remish project, which I think that website will be able to hold most of the activities being done by the Remish, and it will also have a direct link for people to make donation, and people will see the progress of the ongoing work that the Remish is doing. So basically, if you can collect pictures and video footages of the existing building and the ongoing project that is on right now, we'll be able to put together something for the Remish to have. Because again, visuals plays a lot of role in terms of fundraising activities, especially with something like this. People want to see the progress of what is happening for them to be able to say, well, okay, I will come in and donate. Anything will make a difference. Some people might not really give you money, but they will donate 10 bags of cement, 20 bags of cement. They will donate 2 or 4 tons of iron rods. They will donate maybe stone or anything that will be beneficial to the project. So whatever is needed should be updated on the website, and people will know exactly what sort of supports that the Remish project is in dying need of at this particular point in time for you to be able to accomplish it. So we'll come in as much as we can, as we said earlier on, in making our own contributions towards the project. So I know.
Can I thank you on behalf of Remish UK and Remish Sierra Leone for offering to help us with the website?
No problem.
I want to really thank you. And I'm not sure how pushed you are on Saturday, because if you can attend the lunch on sale, that would be just wonderful to have a feel of Remish, but a taste of the fellowship of Remish as well. You don't have to answer me on air, but you know, I just, you know.
No, we have to be honest about it. Our eyes are going to be there.
Yes.
Even if we're not there in person, because we have a very tight schedule for this weekend. Like you said, but we would have loved to be part of it on Saturday, but we will still have an eye that is going to oversee possibly everything that is happening. So we're not going to miss out on anything so far, except otherwise. But what we needed most is to capture the activities of what is happening. And that is not going to be impossible for us to have those images or footages from the sources of what we are going to possibly install within the Remish. You might not know what we have within your cycle of membership. But we are highly involved behind the scenes of so many things that happen within our community.
Amen.
It's our own contributions towards society and towards our community, because every little helps. What we can do is to elaborate the essence of what you are doing for the entire population within our community to be able to come on board and say, okay, I will do this, I will do that, I can make this contributions. We have people who sit on money in Sierra Leone and don't know what to do with it because of trust, because of project that has failed, project that they've been involved in that hasn't made any dividends in terms of what they would believe to say, I have invested my money into this project, but I haven't seen nothing that comes back. They want to see reality project that they can put their money into, not make any profit, but just to support. And
please help us send them to Remish, please.
Well, we cannot guarantee, but we highlight thanks to them, and they will be able to say, well, I will make X and Y contributions. So as long as it is not associated with anything to do with politics, definitely give you guys the direction of where some of these funds are. They might not want to invest in us because they think we are our own, we have our own controversial issues surrounding us. But we'll also be in the position to give it out to the community who is in dying need of those resources. So we'll not stop to do that. We'll continue to do that as we've always done. And I think it is a platform that we've always made open to every Sierra Leonean. Come and utilize it as much as you can. The platform is here for us to drive our own individual goals, community goals, or personal goals, as long as it is going to be of benefits to the entire Sierra Leone community, whether in Sierra Leone or in the diaspora. We are open to everything. So thank you very much, Reverend Macaulay, for your contributions today.
Thank you, T-Boy, and thank you, Femi.
No problem. And I think we might leave it to go, but we're just going to wrap up the program and say thank you to everybody that has joined us since this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are, and for your contributions on Facebook and YouTube, and everything else that has been said by Reverend Macaulay is something that we so dearly passionate about. So in the meantime, please continue to contribute towards their GoFundMe page, which is on the link. The link is on the chat group. I've also posted the link on YouTube. So for those who are on YouTube, the link has been pinned on YouTube as well. And I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to Mariama for making this possible for us to be able to host her Reverend, who she definitely believes has a huge interest in making sure that retired ministers in Sierra Leone should have living accommodation until God is ready to take their life to eternity. So thank you very much, Mariama, for that. And I also want to say thank you for everything that you guys have done so far on the chat group. And thank you, Femi, for also making this possible, because I believe for sure this is one of your greatest initiatives that you would have loved to accomplish yourself. But like you said, leaving it to Reverend Macaulay that has already had a footing. It's just for us now to come on board and give him the support that we can. But let's look at what they are doing closely and see how we can help and support them in your own little way, in our own little way, in any other way that each and every one can make in terms of making meaningful contribution towards this project. So thank you once more. On behalf of the Sierra Leone Media team, don't forget to join us tomorrow. Hopefully, we might be having another program on Thursday, which is going to be specifically how they go inside the Republic. That's not a religious program. It gets for dealing with the issues then with the nyaka the country, salons, how come out. So don't fail to join us. If you're just joining us today for the first time, please share the program and continue to follow us on Facebook. And also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. And for all the YouTubers who are live right now, please don't forget to subscribe, because your subscription is what is keeping us going. So don't forget to do that. And again, like we said earlier on, We'll make our own meaningful contributions towards our society that we live in Sierra Leone and in the diaspora. And that is what we have to do. We will do it to the best of our ability. So thank you guys once more for following us, and thank you for all your contribution. We will link up with the Remish team in the UK and see how best we can put together some of the promises that we've made publicly on air, and we'll be able to execute it anytime soon. We have to make sure that the materials are ready, and we should follow that up through within the next couple of days. So thank you guys once more, and don't forget to join us tomorrow for another edition of How We Go Inside the Republic. And also bear in mind, Sunday is the World Cup final. I personally will decide who I'm going to support, with England playing against Spain on Sunday. Time will be confirmed, but if you subscribe or follow in our page, you will have an instant notification. So thank you once more, and have a pleasant evening, and drive safe if you're on your way home, and don't drink and drive. And don't forget, the Bible teaches us to be faithful and to be honest to one another, and support whatever you can in terms of making your own meaningful contribution to the Remish project. So until tomorrow, have a good night, and I will say bye-bye to you all.